Hi everyone! Welcome back or welcome in. It's Deanne here, and it is mid-October. It is spooky season. I know that word is kind of a little bit cringy, like as words were coming out of my mouth, I'm like, spooky season, but it's what everyone says. So it's spooky season. I am at the height of my powers. October is my favorite month. Halloween is like my favorite, not holiday, my favorite observance. It's a holiday. It should be a holiday. Let's start a petition. Make Halloween a holiday. I'm gonna make Halloween great again. So today for the Halloween video, I thought I would do a little bit of yapping. I would show you some decorating that I've done, both inside and out. I went to a Halloween event yesterday, and I can tell you a little bit about that. And near the end of the video, I will tell you about the scariest thing that's ever happened to me. So get yourself a warm beverage, and let's get into it. So yesterday in Regina, there was the All Hallows Con. It was put on by this local group that does a lot of markets throughout the year, kind of like Gen Z coded markets. Maybe it's just because I'm old and everything is Gen Z coded now, but it's definitely like a youth oriented thing. But they're makers markets, and I always like to go and support those. So I was definitely excited when they announced this All Hallows Con. It was in one of our local, what I like to call dirt malls, like just a mall that has nothing going on. Half the stores are closed. So it was nice to see them use the space because it's a huge mall, but there's just nothing in it. So might as well use it up. I got next to no video or pictures in there because the second I walked in the door, I was like, I am overwhelmed. I cannot handle anything happening right now. This was a bad idea. So the event was costumes encouraged. So of course I dressed up because any excuse to dress up. I was a witch. A witch is one of those costumes where I just pull everything from my regular wardrobe. It's like, I already have all these things. So I looked super cute, but again, I was running late to leave the house because of course I was. And then as soon as I got there, again, like I was just so overwhelmed with everything that I was like, I don't want to take pictures. I don't want anyone to look at my costume. This is too much. I don't know if that's a thing like with age where I'm just like, everything is too overwhelming because I like festivals, I like conventions, I like concerts, I like all those things. But I feel like then once I get to them, I'm like, no, I hate them. Get out of here. But the con itself was really great. They had like so many vendors, lots of handmade stuff. I only saw like two or three like MLM kind of things, and they were kind of put at like the end of one of the rows. So it was like almost all like handmade stuff. A lot of that 3D printed stuff, which I don't particularly care for. But a lot of other like really great artists. It was really cool to see so many different kinds of art out there. They had a few panels where there was a local author talked about some of her favorite ghost stories from the city, and another guy talked about how to kind of like save VHS movies and how, especially horror films, like watching them on VHS. And he kind of shared like some of his favorite movies and whatnot, and kind of just gave a little talk about that. There was a costume contest that was emceed by one of our local drag queens, Lala Lobotomy. And she did a little performance for us as well. She had this super cute pink outfit on. That's about the only video I did take, so I'll insert some of that here. And then they also had three different tattoo artists doing flash tattoos. And I have never been a get a tattoo at a convention kind of guy, but I haven't had a tattoo in several years, and I've really been wanting a ghost tattoo lately. And so I thought, okay, well, if I go and it's not terribly busy or super expensive, maybe I'll think about getting a tattoo. And so I went and I talked to her, and she said, well, I have a few people ahead of you, but we're probably looking at about an hour and a half if you want to come back. And she had this really cute little tattoo that I liked. And I was like, yeah, let's book it. So I gave her my name and my phone number, and she said, I'll text you when I'm ready for you. So I looked at the rest of the things at the con, looked at all the tables, did all my shopping. And then I was like, I'm done. I cannot be here any longer. I'm hot. I'm overwhelmed. I am done wearing this costume, like the witch hat and this little shawl I had on. I just had to keep like rearranging it the whole time. I dumped half an iced coffee on me. Like I was just like, I need to be where the people aren't. So I just went out to my car and sat in the car for like probably 45 minutes. And then I thought, well, it's probably almost time for my tattoo appointment. So I'll wander back in. And I wandered around for a while and she still wasn't ready for me. So there's a drugstore in the mall. So I was like, well, I should probably like get something into my system because I hadn't eaten since breakfast. So I just like went and got an orange juice and just like sat in a quiet part of the mall where the con wasn't happening and just like drank an orange juice and just like was by myself for a minute. I actually did part of the New York Times crossword because I'm a cool lady. So finally she texted me and she's like, hey, if you're still around, like I have time for your tattoo. And I'm like, yes, I'm still around. I've been here whole fucking day. Please poke needles into me already. I'll try and insert a picture here, but it's hard to take video or picture of like your own body when it's not just like your face or whatever. So I have all these weird angles of pictures on my phone. I would like send pictures to friends last night and it's like incoming weird close up of part of my leg or whatever. But yeah, I got this little ghost with two cats. I got it just above my knee on my thigh. I love it so much. It already looks so good, even though it's like healing or whatnot. But the lines are like really sharp and crisp, and it looks really good. So I finished up the tattoo. It took like 20 minutes or whatever. And I ran into a friend and we talked for a couple minutes. And then I was like, lovely to see you. I need to be far, far away from here now. I need to get out of this mall. I need to get out of this end of town because it's my least favorite part of town. I need to get like into my house, into my pajamas. I need to order dinner and I just need to stay here. Like I was just so done with everything. I was supposed to have an extra dance practice this afternoon, which is like the next day. And I texted my friends and I was like, I'm sorry, I'm all peopled out. I cannot possibly be in the same room as you today. So have a good practice. I will see you later. Okay, scariest story that ever happened to me. This was back when I was living in Lethbridge, which for anyone who doesn't know is a small, well, I would call it a small city in southern Alberta. It is the third largest city in Alberta, but it's like way behind Calgary and Edmonton. I think there's, at least when I lived there, maybe like 80,000 people lived there. So small, like a third the size of the city I live in now. Less than that even. So yeah, it's a small city. But it's a cute little city. It's like you can like draw a line straight north between like Salt Lake City, Utah and Lethbridge, Alberta. And that tracks because I think it is officially like the Mormon capital of Canada. There's a lot of Mormons and a lot of like evangelical Christians. I did not know that when I moved there. This has nothing to do with the story. But anyway, it's a lovely little town. It's a college town. Really beautiful. Like it's just out of like I wouldn't say it's in the foothills of the Rockies, but there was like one window in the college that on a clear day, if I looked out, I could like see the Rockies like in the distance. So I think it's technically more like the Badlands, which I love Badlands actually even more than I love the mountains. So all that to say, lovely little city. We'll call it a city. Lovely little city. So I wasn't driving when I was living in Lethbridge. I didn't get my driver's license till I was like 31. So definitely wasn't driving at the time. I was just taking the bus everywhere. There was one year where I started school and I was like stupid broke until my student loan funding came in. So I just walked everywhere because I couldn't afford a bus pass for the first like 2 weeks of class. And I discovered just how small the city was. So then I just kind of kept walking everywhere. I was like, it's good exercise and it's actually not that far to walk where I'm going. So in my third year, I had moved into this little townhouse kind of thing with two sisters. They had already lived there and they were looking for a new roommate, and I was the new roommate. And I really liked the setup, the arrangement that we had, and I didn't want to lose that over the summer because every other summer I'd been going home for the summer or whatever, and I didn't want to lose this apartment or this house or whatever. I wanted to stay there. So I was like, hey, I think I'm going to try to like be a big girl and like just work over the summer and don't have like, a student loan to fall back on and just like work, like ask for full-time hours at the fabric store I was working at and just like see if I can, make it work over the summer, like pay my rent, pay my phone bill, like buy my groceries all by myself. It was tight, but it worked. I didn't die. I'm still here, unless I'm a ghost. I'm not, but that is what a ghost would probably say. So yeah, so I was just like, I'm going to stay over the summer, and then I'll live here next year. And the sisters were like, perfect, like works for us, like it's easy for everyone. So that summer, I had a friend who also worked at the fabric store with me and was also a student with me. And we were pretty good friends. And so we kind of got into this kind of weekly habit of usually like a Friday or a Saturday night, I would go over to her house because she was living in a basement suite by herself, just like her and her dog. And we'd like rent a movie or it was, in the days when the OC was brand new on TV. So we would kind of get together and watch that. I don't know what day that show was on, but if it was on one of the days, we would get together and watch that or just rent a movie, like order in dinner and just eat. And because we were both design students, we would, we liked sewing and knitting and stuff. So quite often we would be like working on a project together while we were watching movies and just hang out all night. I took the bus, so I would quite often take the bus to her house because she was just a little bit further away from me than it was. I could walk it, but it was a hike. It wasn't like I'll be there in 2 minutes kind of thing. So I would take the bus there, and then we knew that I had to get on the bus, say 11 o'clock or whatever, because that was the last bus that would go past her part of town to take me home. So at like 10 to 11 or whatever, we would get ready and she would put her dog on the leash and she would walk me kind of up the road and then just like across the street, and then there was a bus stop right on the corner. And we would just kind of hang out there until the bus came, and then I get on the bus and her and her dog would walk home. Did this like literally every week. And there was one day, and I don't know why, we had to like come to a street and then cross the street to get to where the bus stop is. And we were waiting for the light to turn. And I said to her, you know what? The bus is going to be here right away. Don't bother like waiting to cross the street and then cross back or whatever. You can go. It's fine. Like, like literally 2 minutes and the bus will be here. I'll talk to you tomorrow kind of thing, whatever. So she's like, okay, if you're sure. And I was like, yeah, totally. So I was like, okay. She took off. She turned around, went back down the street, and at the green light, I crossed the street and went to the bus stop. And I was waiting. I had my Sony Discman, and I put my earphones in, and I did this quite often. I would listen to it like low level, so I could still kind of like listen to everything around me. But I just like had them in because once I got on the bus, I'd be listening to it anyway, kind of thing. And so there was like a little bit of the block where the bus stop was, and then an alley, and then like a few more houses. And, traffic going back and forth because it's a weekend night. So, it might be a small city, but it wasn't completely dead. So a car drove past and pulled into the alley, and I didn't really think anything of it. I thought, okay, well, he probably just taken a shortcut, or he, lives over here or whatever. And after like a second, I thought, oh, that car is sitting just in the alley, like kind of like they've just pulled off the road and they're sitting in the alley and the car is on. And I looked back for a second and I saw a guy get out. This part makes my heart stop when I think of it. And memory is fuzzy because it happened over 20 years ago. And I know that every time we remember something, all we're remembering is the last time we thought about it. So things change, I understand. But to the best of my knowledge, what I remember is either the trunk or one of the back seat car doors was open. And I still didn't think anything of it. I thought, oh, he lives in that house right there, and he's probably putting something away or picking something up or whatever. I always just like think the best of things like that. Like he doesn't have any bad intentions. He's rescued a whole bunch of puppies and he's going to put them in his yard. So I didn't think anything of it. I saw like, okay, whatever, the door's open. Went back to face the street, waiting for the bus. And I turned again and he was like on the other side of the alley, so like closer to me now, but still back kind of in like the not quite the yard, but like closer to the fence of the house that I was standing in front of. And like in the shadows. And I could just see like his shape and his eyes. And he was looking at me. He was watching me. And he was maybe no more than 10 feet away. And at the time, I had noticed this thing throughout, like, the months, like the past, few months, that like men in Lethbridge really love to piss in public. And I had just caught people pissing in public all the time, not just like in an alley or like behind a bar, but just like out in the middle of the street in front of the library, like next to the mall, just pissing in public all the time. So I honestly just thought that's what he was doing, and he just had no shame. And instead of turning around to like put his back to me, he was just facing me. Now I didn't see like his dick out or anything, but I just assumed if he's just standing in the dark like that, like what else are you doing? You're probably just pissing in the dark. So I gave him a kind of face, like to show like I'm judging you hard. And I just stepped away from the bus stop. So I stepped from the alley and I just walked towards the corner where I had just crossed the street. And I thought, I'm just going to stand a little bit further away from this guy because he's kind of not giving me the creeps, but I'm just kind of like, ew. So I thought, I can just stand here. The bus was going to come up the street that I had just crossed and then turn left and pull right into where I was standing. And I thought, I'll just like stand kind of in between like the corner and the bus stop. And when I see it coming, I'll walk back to the bus stop or whatever. So I stood there for like another 30 seconds. I was like, well, now I'm just standing in the middle of nowhere and I don't want to be perceived. What if someone asks me why I'm standing here? I can't just stand on a street. I have to look like I'm doing something. So I walked up to the corner and I went to cross the street like this way. So I'll just walk up to like the next stop. But to do that, I would have to walk across the street and then cross the street again to like get on the right side of the street for where the bus is coming. And of course, in doing all that, the bus had approached and I was still, as I had said in other videos, a little bit like too afraid of my own shadow at that time. So I couldn't possibly have held my hand out and been like, oh, actually, I need to get on the stop. Can you please stop? Or can you like wait for me at the stop or whatever? No, I couldn't have done that. I couldn't have like drawn attention to myself when like, especially at that time in Lethbridge, they were so good about if you are a young woman at night on the bus alone, when you like push the button, say like, I want to get off at the next stop, like the driver would always say, do you want off at the stop or do you want off at the corner or like mid block or whatever? Like, or even like there were a couple of times where it was just like pouring buckets and I like went to get off the bus and he was like, do you want off here? I can like let you off like further up the road or whatever. Like they were so accommodating. So I know if I like held up my hand and said like, oh, wait for me, the bus would have been like, yeah, no problem. Of course I'll wait for you. And I just, I couldn't like draw attention to myself. So I just like watched the bus drive past and I was like, shit, that's the last bus of the night. So guess I'm walking. Because of course, remember, this was 2003. So cell phones were a thing, but I didn't have a cell phone. I didn't have a car, I didn't have a phone. Like I couldn't have called anyone. And also my friend that was walking, that I was visiting, that had walked me partway to the bus stop, she didn't have a car either. So it's not like I could have walked to the 7-Eleven and found a payphone and called her and said, hey, I'm kind of stranded at the 7-Eleven. Can you come pick me up? Like I felt really embarrassed about this for a long time that I didn't tell anyone. So it never occurred to me to call anyone to say, hey, I'm a little bit stuck here. And I don't know, never occurred to me to find a payphone and call a cab. Like I was just like, oh fuck, I missed the bus. I guess I'm walking home. And I think a part of that was one, I've always enjoyed walking. Two, it was a beautiful summer night. There was this thing happening on like kind of like one of the main drags of the city, like further up the road. It was like, I don't know, here we call them cruise nights. I don't know what they called it there, but everyone gets their like old classic cars all like shined up and they just like drive them down the main drag to like show them off. So it was like a beautiful night for that. And I knew like the cruise night was happening like several blocks up that way. So there were people out. And yeah, it was like late, but not crazy late. I was like, fuck it, I'm just gonna walk home. It's totally fine. So I just started going. I was like, I'll just start walking. All good. And I come up around the hospital. And it's funny, when you live in a city where you're like new to the city, you kind of just like get used to the parts of the city you need to get used to. So I had lived in Lethbridge for like 3 years by then, but I'd never had to go to the hospital. So I remember walking and thinking, oh, that's where the hospital is. I've never seen the hospital here. Anyway, just kept walking. I got to the end of the street where the hospital was, and it was kind of a T intersection, if I'm remembering correctly. So there's like the hospital, and then houses, and then like the street, and then like a main, like a more main street that went in the opposite direction. And I approached that, and I looked up the road, and I was like, "Is that the guy from the alley? Is his car over here now?" And he had gotten out of the car and walked about the car's length towards me. And I freaked out. I just about faced. I turned around. And I was like, I will find a different route. So I just kind of like turned around and went up one block. And I was like, I'll just walk home down this block or go as far as I can down this block until I have to like jog over to get going to my house. And I was like, ooh, dodged a bullet. Okay, let's keep going. So I walked a few more blocks and this car drives past me and I see brake lights. And I don't know, he either like made a U-turn or I saw him like turn, like go like up the block and then down this block and then around to come back up. And I was like, that's that fucking guy again. And he got out of the car again. Like car just kind of like parked, but still running on the side of the road. And I have this memory, and again, we know memories can fail you sometimes, whatever, but I have this memory that each time he got out of the car, another piece of clothing was missing. Like jacket was gone the first time, shirt gone the next time. I have that in my head. I will fully admit maybe that's not what happened, but that is how I remember it today. So I was like, oh shit, okay, now like first time, maybe I was blowing it out of proportion. Second time, like this is absolutely the same guy the second time. Shit, I'm in trouble. But still, I can't like call any attention to myself because I did this to myself, right? So I was like, well, I'll just do another about face. And this happened 2 or 3 more times. And I kept like getting like halfway down a street. He would appear. I would do an about face. I'd find another direction. I was just like bobbing and weaving all over this, neighborhood or whatever. And I thought I had lost him because I had, it had been a while, like several minutes, and I didn't see his car. And I was like, okay, wow, like that was scary, but I'm on the home stretch kind of thing. So I slowed my pace a little bit. There was a cat on a driveway that I was walking past, and I mean, once a cat lady, always a cat lady. So I stopped to play with the cat a whole bunch, and then I was like, okay, kitty, like I gotta go. I'll see you later, kind of thing. And like a minute later, he drives up past me again, and I remember at this point, I didn't realize I had been doing it until later, but I had my hands clasped like in prayer mode so tightly that like my hands hurt. And I was just like, I need to get out of this. Like, what do I do? And he had gone up the street, and we were like on opposite ends of like a schoolyard now. And he had kind of like gone the other way. And I thought, well, I can cut across the school, like the school like playground, but I have no means of escape now. So if I get halfway through this field and he sees me, I'm stuck. So I turned around and I took this whole big detour again, came up down this little crescent, and he had come up behind me. And I was walking on the sidewalk. And I mean, it's Southern Alberta. Everyone there has a ginormous pickup truck. Normally I roll my eyes at those things, but I legitimately think maybe one of these pickup trucks saved my life that night. So all these pickup trucks, so you could only see maybe like this much of me from the sidewalk because these trucks were so huge. So he didn't see me right away when he drove down this crescent, and he got to the corner and turned around, and then I saw brake lights. So I think once he got around the corner, he saw me. And I froze. I stopped dead in my tracks. And I started to walk up to a house. And I was like, I'll just make it look like this is my house and I live here and I'm going home now, so you better keep driving. And he crept up a little bit, but so that I couldn't see him from like the driveway. And I was so afraid that like the homeowners were going to like come out and be like, get off my property. And it's like, they should have. So I could have said, hey, I'm in some real trouble here. Can I just like hang out on your lawn and can you call the police for me or something? Like, but I was so afraid of getting in trouble. So, like I said, he had like driven up a little bit and I came out of the driveway, but I could still tell that he was there. Even though I couldn't see his car, I could see the reflection of his brake lights on the street. And he was just up enough, like maybe 10, 15 feet around the corner. And I thought, he's there and he's waiting for me. So I left this driveway, I left the sidewalk, I got onto the street. There was a great big F-150 parked here and a great big F-150 parked here. And I just got down in between the two trucks and just kind of like crouched on the ground. And I just stood there and I could like kind of like peek out around the truck and kind of watch for him. And I probably sat there for a good 5 minutes and he just sat there for 5 minutes. And I thought, fuck, one of us has to make a move. I can't live behind a truck. Like, what is going on? And eventually I saw the brake lights go away. I could tell that he had driven away. I could hear the car driving. And I was like, okay, he's gone. I don't want to walk that way though. So I waited a couple more minutes to make sure that he wasn't going to like come up around and come up behind me. And he never did. I stood up. I kind of like looked around because I mean, all the other times before that, I could have thought, oh, I'm being paranoid, whatever. But that time, like at that point, my heart was racing. I was like, I literally thought, bad things were going to happen. So I turned around again, did another about face, and I walked kind of partway up this crescent. And it was an older neighborhood, and I have a couple streets like that in my neighborhood now where it's a crescent, but in between a couple of the houses, there was like this little paved walkway that kind of just like let you like kind of jog across to the next crescent kind of thing. But it was dark. And I was like, I know where this is going. I understand that like this will like get me a little bit closer to my house without having to go all the way around onto the street where this guy might be waiting for me. But it's dark and I don't know what's over there. So I kind of like creeped around this little walkway and I was like, I think this is like the best way. I just have to go for it. So I walked through and I made it, obviously, still here today. I made it through this other walkway, ended up on this other crescent, and then I kind of like curved around the other crescent and got out onto this main drag where, like I said, this like cruise night kind of thing was happening. And people had like their lawn chairs like set up on like this street and they were just like watching the cars drive past and everything. So once I got out there, it was busy enough. There were people around. Before there were no people around. It was just this quiet little like suburban neighborhood. Like everyone's house was dark. Like it was only maybe 11:30 at night, but people were in bed. Like it was Nothing was happening. So I got up there and there's, businesses and stuff. I could have walked into, the coffee shop or whatever and said like, or even just like got a coffee and sat down and like collected myself, if I didn't need to like call the police or anything. But I was like, no, just you're like, where you're going now, just walk all the way down this main drag where there are lots of people and lights. And I just had to walk like all the way down this street, and then there'd be a set of lights, cross the street, and then just walk like 4 or 5 more blocks that way, and then I was home. So never saw the guy again. But I got to this crosswalk, this traffic light where I had to cross the street, and this other guy just appeared out of nowhere. And in my more woo-woo moments, I tell myself that it was a guardian angel. I don't know if I believe in guardian angels, but I feel like there was something there that was like, you're safe now. This guy might seem like a bit of a creep, but because it's the way he was like all in white and he seemingly just like came out of nowhere. So he like rocked up on a bicycle. He was waiting to cross the street at the same time as me. And he was about the same age as me. And so he was like, oh, hello, like, what are you up to tonight? And I was like, I was just at a friend's house watching a movie. Don't ask me about creepy things that have just happened to me because somehow this is my fault. And we were chatting or whatever. And he was like, so, like, do you have a boyfriend or whatever? And I was like, fuck's sakes, that was not the fucking time. So at the time, I think I was a bit more, well, no, I think I did consider myself like bisexual. I'm aro ace now, but at the time I was definitely bisexual, but I just told the guy, I was like, oh, I'm gay. I have a girlfriend, whatever. And he's like, oh, cool. That's okay. I'm gay too. And I'm like, what a fucking stupid thing to say, because then why are you trying to pick me up, buddy? But I mean, he was like just a harmless doofus, I think. And he just like walked until I got to my house. And I was like, well, I have to turn here. And I like turned and went like around and like in through the back door because I didn't want him to like see where my house was or whatever. So I made it home, and my one roommate was out and the other one was home already, and she was in bed, and I like quietly like closed the door and I kind of was like, oh, I'm home. And I went upstairs and I went to bed and I stayed in my room the entire next day. Like I just felt like so foolish about things. Like, how could I have let this happen? What was I thinking walking home? Why was I wearing my earphones? Why was I wearing a dress? Like, these are all these things that make me a target. And it's like, no, that guy was a creep, and this was not my fault. I was very, very nervous around strangers for a long time after that. I used to walk past the little like kind of complex that I lived in, and there was a park, and if I kind of cut diagonally through the park, it would take me right out to the Safeway, and so that's how I would go to get groceries all the time. And for a long time after that, I was too afraid to cut through the park, because one time I like got halfway through the park and then I saw like just random people hanging out in the park, as people do, but I saw them and I was like, no, they can't be trusted. I don't know what their intentions are. I can't get stuck here. So I would like take the long way everywhere, and I was like afraid to be by myself in, situations like that. But I eventually got over it. And like I travel by myself now. I walk, I go for walks all the time in the dark by myself. Like I'm over that. Like I know that I'm not afraid of those things anymore. But it was very scary at the time. And like, looking at it as an adult after we've kind of gone through the whole like latest true crime kind of fad or fascination or whatever, I think about, because I've, read so much about true crime and like watched true crime documentaries and podcasts and everything, you kind of like want to pathologize the guy a little bit. And it's like, well, either I'm the first person he tried that on, or I'm the first person that got away. Like, has he done this to other girls? Has he kidnapped other girls? Have other girls been in the trunk of that car? So I went down a real like rabbit hole a few years ago of like Lethbridge, 2003, missing girl, kidnapping. I couldn't find anything about it, but I'm convinced That like he didn't just randomly decide to do that one day. Like he had plans. He had been doing that before. I'm convinced that that was a pattern. He had to have done that before. There had to have been something before or since. I can't find any information about that. But sometimes I will really let myself like kind of spiral. Like if I hadn't turned around and looked over my shoulder in disgust, thinking that he was peeing, but if I hadn't turned around at that exact moment, it would have been nothing for him to just grab me. And I mean, I'm taller than the average woman and I'm fatter than the average woman, and I was back then too. So, I could put up a fight, but the element of surprise, he could absolutely have just overpowered me and thrown me in his car. It was like 5 feet away from him. So I sometimes that just kind of like stops me in my tracks. Like that night could have ended very differently. I could have been a statistic. I could have been another like missing person. It's wild when I stop to think about it, just how different that night could have gone. And I didn't tell anyone about it for years because I was embarrassed that I allowed myself to get into this stupid situation. I've still only told maybe like 5 people. I'm not embarrassed about it anymore because it's not my problem. It's not my fault. But it's just I was very ashamed of this for a long time. And I clearly still have like trauma about it. I don't think I have as much. I kind of have like worked through it, but it was very scary, and I don't wish it on anyone. Like I didn't even think to call the police because I was like, well, nothing happened. He didn't assault me. He didn't do anything. It was just a guy in a car that followed me. But like he didn't hurt me because I didn't let him, I guess we could say. Like, but he was intending to. Like, if nothing else, I should have called the police so there was a record of that. So that if it happens to another girl, there's more of a record to that. But at the time, I was just so embarrassed. I was like, well, this is just another stupid situation I got myself into. So I can't bring any attention to it. So I guess the moral of the story is like, listen to your gut, because something clearly made me like turn around and look at him when I did. So that's maybe just the takeaway is like, listen to your gut. But also the other takeaway is don't let that scare you into staying in your house all the time. Like I said, I live next to a fairly dangerous neighborhood. Some people would say it's the worst neighborhood in Canada. If you know, you know. I live within walking distance of that neighborhood, and I would go for a walk right now if it wasn't like -2 Celsius outside. Not much. I've traveled to Europe. I've traveled to Mexico by myself, and been out, at night by myself in these countries. You keep your head on a swivel. You keep your wits about you. Go about your life and enjoy it. Don't let that keep you indoors for the rest of your life. So that's the scariest story that's ever happened to me. If you have any insights or if you have any scary stories that have happened to you, please drop them in the comments. I would love to hear about them. Not to hear any lurid details or anything, but it's important that we share our stories. And the more that we talk about these things, the less scary they become. Also, I found that the more we talk about the bad things that happen to us, the more we realize that we're not alone. I would tell a story to someone and say, oh, that reminds me of this time that this thing happened to me. And then someone else would say, oh yeah, that happened to me too. So it's kind of a scary thing too, where it's like, oh, shit is happening to all of us. And we're just not saying anything because maybe, you know, like me, we're embarrassed that, you know, this thing happened to us, even though it's not our fault and it's nothing to be embarrassed about. So absolutely, like, keep telling your story, even if you don't go to the police, because you don't need to go to the police if you know, if you don't feel that's appropriate for you. But keep telling your story, keep sharing your story, because the more that we share them, you know, the less scary it becomes, and the more aware everyone becomes that, you know, we all have to watch out for each other. But that's all I've got for you today. I hope everyone has an amazing, safe, happy Halloween. This is my second Halloween in my house, like, as a homeowner. Last Halloween was really awesome. I got lots of kids coming to the door for trick-or-treating. So I have a ton of candy in the freezer right now. I'll take it out like on the 30th. It's in the freezer because if I didn't put it in the freezer, I wouldn't have anything by the 31st. So drop a comment below. What is your favorite Halloween candy? What are you dressing up as Halloween? What are you dressing up as Halloween? What are you dressing up for Halloween? Do you have any scary stories of yourself? I would love to hear any and all stories you have to tell. But until then, I love you. Thank you for watching, and be kind.